And TGIF, everyone. Welcome into the First Call podcast. He is the Shap, Scott Shapiro. That makes me the chaperone. I will lead him around the picks this week as we talk about the Santa Anita Handicap, the big cap day at Santa Anita, San Felipe Stakes for the 3-year-olds on that undercard. We've got a Breeders' Cup champion on the card as well. We'll talk about her. And, of course, at Tampa Bay Downs, it's Tampa Bay Derby weekend. And Saturday, the big race in Oldsmar for the season and their big card of the season. Looking forward to some Kentucky Derby qualifiers punching their tickets this week, Scott. 50 points to the winners of these two races, and certainly a win and you're in kind of situation towards the Derby.
Absolutely. Definitely looking forward to them both. I think we're going to learn a lot about a couple of horses that coming into the year were considered top prospects and now maybe, still are to an extent, but have kind of been forgotten a little since they haven't raced. And that's Brant and Further Ado. Looking forward to seeing them run and chatting about them over the course of the pod.
All right, let's talk about some handicapping today on Friday as we drop this podcast each and every Friday. Some carryovers to the chase. It's been a common theme here on Fridays to tell you about these carryovers. Santa Anita's got a pick six carryover in the traditional $2 pick six. Scott's got blog action up for that, telling you who he likes in the handicapping sequence there at Santa Anita. And then the final three on the card at Santa Anita matches up with the final three on the card at Gulfstream Park for the daily Sunset Six wager. There was nobody who hit the Sunset Six last Sunday. So Frank Caruli's got you teed up and ready to drive one down the fairway with his picks for the Sunset Six. Check those out at the blog section, expressbet.com, and at news.first.com as well. So a lot of good handicapping on Friday. Let's talk about the Saturday handicapping. And for those of you on our traditional audio channels, I'll run down the list of the 8 races Scott and I are going to handicap over the next half hour or so. For those of you watching on X, watching on YouTube, be sure to hammer that like button, share this out with other people, and comment in the comment section. Let us know who you like or why you don't like our picks. That's okay too. Saturday, March 7th, the slate lines up this way. We'll do 4 races at Santa Anita, starting with the Beholder Mile. That'll be race number 4 on the card. We'll go to the San Felipe for the 3-year-olds on that Derby trail, race number 8. The Kilroe Mile for the Turf Milers matches up in race number 9, and we'll wrap it up with the big cap, the Santa Anita Handicap, race number 10 on the card. We've got some scratches to talk about in that one, some early news during the course of the week. To Gulfstream, we go Saturday for a single headliner, that being the Hurricane Birdie Stakes. Gulfstream Park feature on Saturday, and then we'll stay in Florida. We'll give you 3 of the 4 stakes on the card at Tampa Bay Downs. They've got the Columbia Stakes in race number 7 for the 3-year-olds on the turf. We'll skip the Hillsborough in race number 9. We'll go to the 10th for the Florida Oaks, give you a look at that one on the turf on this Oaks prep here, and to the Tampa Bay Derby in race number 11. We'll wrap it up for the weekend with that big 50-point to the winner Kentucky Derby points prep. And when we talk about points preps, you want to be betting those Triple Crown prep races with First Bet and Express Bet, because this weekend, as we have all season and will through April, there's up to a $10 money back special when you bet these prep races with First Bet and Express Bet. That means you get up to $10 back if your win bet finishes 2nd or 3rd in either the San Felipe this weekend or the Tampa Bay Derby. So again, get those win bets in with First Bet and Express Bet, and you get up to $10 back if the win bet finishes 2nd or 3rd. Scott, also on Saturday, I know you've done a lot of work on this card already for Santa Anita Handicap Day, and we've got an Exacta-thon going in there, $5,000 to be split amongst people for just playing and hitting exactas throughout the card.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity. You've got to hit 5 $2 exactas over the course of the 11 races to share in the 4,000 of the $5,000 pool, if you will. Right. And then the ultimate goal is to hit the most amongst any horse players at First Bet and Express Bet, and you'll get the extra 1,000 if more than one of you hit that. You'll get an equal share, much like you will with everybody that hit the 5+ exactas. So I spoke a little bit about a couple of potential exactas in my full card analysis that you referenced, JP, and the rest is for you either to maybe take my advice along with Jeremy's and some others, piece yours together, or not take our advice at all and do your own thing.
Go out on a limb on your own. There's nothing wrong with that at all. In that Exacta-thon, like Scott had mentioned, again, he said $2 minimum wagers on those exactas to qualify for the contest. Of course, you could bet the dollar exactas with the track limits, but to play in the contest, $2 minimum exacta in those Exacta-thons. But also remember that you could have multiple exactas in the same race. You could bet 20 different exactas. All you need to do is hit one of them in that race, and it qualifies as hitting an exacta in that race. So no limit on the number of exactas you can play, just a limit in terms of the minimum bet. which will be $2. Okay. Promotions aside, it's time to get handicapping here. Let's start things out. Going to Santa Anita for race number 4 on the Saturday card. The Beholder Mile, Grade 1, 2-turn event here at Santa Anita in the Distaff division. Named for the 22 Hall of Famer Beholder. What a career she had. 4-time Eclipse Award winner, Scott. When you win Eclipse Awards in 2012, 13, skip a year, come back, and do it in 15 and 16. What a remarkable career she had for trainer Richard Mandela. One of the best horses, Gary Stevens says, he ever rode. But if you listen to Gary Stevens enough, and he's a friend of mine, so I can say this, Gary said a lot of horses are the best horse he ever rode.
Absolutely. That is funny. I was out there for those 2 seasons, 15 and 16. And I was at the track every Saturday, basically those years. And I got to see her up and close in person. I mean, I remember her coming into the ring for the Pacific Classic that day, and she's looked more serious and ready to go than almost any horse I've ever seen in person. So she's a horse that I'll always remember. And I don't think Splendora is her, but she's been pretty good of late. I think you were on to this one early, maybe than others in terms of being a Grade 1. I know she went off at almost 3-1. It wasn't crazy, but there were some scratches in that race. She wasn't some huge chalk in the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint, and you caught her in the mornings and thought she was something special. She has been of late. You could question maybe the 2 turns, but she won the Tranquility Lake easily. And I think she can settle if she needs to, if she just faster. She draws, fortunately, outside Dazzling Move, who could be a thorn in the side early, but I just think she's better than these, and we'll prove it again.
You know, she may be better around 1 turn than 2, but when you look down the past performances of this race, that can be said about a lot of these in here. This is really like, if this race was 7/8 of a mile, you wouldn't even like shrug. You'd be like, yeah, it looks like a 7/8 race with the horses who are in it. The fact that it's 2 turns, interesting. Bless the Broken comes in from Fairgrounds for trainer Brad Cox, part of his contingent coming out for Big Cap Day, as he's supported that race over the last 5+ years. Cox bringing Bless the Broken, really the true router in the group, taking on a lot of these Southern California 7 furlong to mile horses. It'll be interesting to see how they match up. But when we talk about Splendora, she came back in the D. Wayne Lucas Stakes. It was after her triumphant win in the Breeders' Cup. She was good in the Lucas, but she wasn't dominant. This race is going to be more important for her. Let's go back and take a look at her win in the Lucas.
At the top of the stretch, me and Molly McGee digging in. Splendora up alongside. These two past the 8th pole together, and Splendora is strutting her stuff now. And she is gone. Splendora opens up on a game, me and Molly McGee. Bob Baffert wins the first D. Wayne Lucas. A fitting conclusion as Splendora cruises in. Me and Molly McGee.
Short price in here. You look at her record, and it's good at Santa Anita. 7 starts, 2 wins, 4 seconds. Little workmanlike in that win last time. Her Del Mar form, though, is like impeccable. She blows everybody out at Del Mar. That's where the Breeders' Cup was. So maybe she's a little bit better at Del Mar than she is at Santa Anita. And that might be what opens the door if you're going to upset her. If you're going to try to beat her in here, Scott, I know she's the top pick and the most logical winner in here. But who do you go to as an alternate?
Yeah, Bless the Broken would be the alternative, because I think if she loses because they go too quick up front. I just think if they go slower up front, she's going to be where she needs to be and be able to outfinish any of the other potential speeds. Even if they, I think you're going to need to come from behind her to beat her. And I think that Bless the Broken, like you mentioned, is the router, cutting back in distance, new barn, kind of has some upside. I mean, this horse was always thought to be good for trainer Will Walden. Now they spent $950 a couple months ago. So I think Bless the Broken, I really might not have given this one enough of a look. I could see going too deep here in certain situations.
It's a good lesson. We're handicapping these races because they're big stakes races, and you say, why are you even talking about a race where a favorite's going to be 2-5 or whatever? But in just talking and handicapping, what you mentioned is I think a key point, no matter what race you're looking at. If you're going to try to beat the favorite and the most logical winner in the race, the best way to do it is with a diverse running style. You're not going to beat the favorite at their game. And usually if a favorite's going to lose a race, it's going to be pace dynamics. The race was too slow and didn't favor her late running style. The race was too fast and wore everybody out. So you don't want to be in that same basket in terms of pace style as the favorite if you're going to try to upset them, because if the race sets up the better horse is probably going to win, right? So you need the opposite setup a lot of times in order to pull these upsets. So if you're going to try to beat Splendora, you don't want to do it up near the front of this race. And that goes for any chalk, I think, on any particular card as you're handicapping around. Let's move now from the Beholder Stakes to race number 8 on the card. It's the San Felipe Stakes. Again, Kentucky Derby prep points on the line here, 50 to the winner. A field of 7 has entered in this particular spot. Bob Baffert's won this race a bajillion times. Try to do it again. I think it's 9 in this one. He's got as many as 12 in some of these preparations.
I know it's hard to keep track of, but he's looking for double digits this year on this one. I know. Check that out.
He's got Brandt. He's got Potente. They are $3 million and $2.4 million pieces of horse flesh. So 5.4 million reasons why Bob Baffert probably has a hold on this race. But yet, Scott, I look at this field, the 7, and I don't know about Brandt. I think he was a good 2-year-old. I don't know if he's a star. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile's been a little bit dicey coming out of that race. Of course, you can't hold the winner, Ted Naffy, against anything being injured now, but none of the other horses have seemed to do a whole lot. I always thought Brandt had that paddling action with his leg and was going to be tough on himself and maybe a sprinter. He ran well in the Breeders' Cup. Is he just a lock in this spot, or are we going to try to get around him?
Nah, there's no locks in this spot because this horse hasn't, I mean, he's got questions to answer. Is he the likeliest winner? Absolutely. You know, he's $3 million. No, that's not why, but no, but he's done very little wrong if you're just looking at his past performances. He, you know, like you said, I mean, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile has not come back strong, but, you know, he basically ran with Ted Naffy, who was the champ most of the way, and then, you know, gave way late. Mr. AP picked up the pieces. So, but he has to answer the 2-turn question, and he has to, you know, answer what you're saying. Like, he was a good early horse. Is he going to move forward here, particularly at the route of ground? To me, Potente, I mean, this was a 5-horse field. I think I know that one of the other Baffert was a first-timer entered in there, got scratched. This was not a very good group. Captain Shreve will run earlier on the card as a third-time starter against a bunch of first-timers, including a couple of Bobs. That might be noteworthy when this race comes up. But to me, I think the now horse is Secured Freedom, who I don't know. I mean, I know we wanted to take a look back at one of Brandt's efforts before we talk about Secured Freedom, or should we talk through it?
No, go with Secured Freedom. We'll give a look back to Brandt here as we close out thoughts on this race. But let's stay on that vein. Secured Freedom, a son of Practical Joke, coming off a 3rd in the Bob Lewis. What'd you like about it?
Well, you know, that race, I didn't think the Lewis was awesome, but man, I mean, it doesn't really matter when you have the trip that he had in that race. First time 2 turns, it's not going to go very well unless you're just a complete freak. I don't think he's the Derby winner here, but this Virginia bred ran very well, and he kept fighting that day. He was 3 wide early, stayed wide throughout. It just did not work out for Kazushi Kimura that day. I don't really hold it against him all that much. This horse looked spent, and then he just kind of kept trying. 91 late pace. I think it bodes well for, you know, how he'll perform at 2 turns. And a move forward here and a step back from Brandt, and I think he's the winner because I'm not sold on So Happy at being a 2-turn horse yet. You know, I got to see that before at 2-1. You know, 5-1, I'll start looking at that. You know, the pedigree and whatnot. But you know, I just don't know if I think this horse is not anything more than kind of a 1-turn, a solid sprinter for Mark Glatt.
Yeah, I'm kind of a little bit in the same boat with So Happy. I mean, he could hit the board in a field of 7 in here, but I'll be surprised if he's the winner. Brett on top for, obviously, with speed. On the dam side, yeah, you see Blame in there, but there's not a ton of route in the dam side of this pedigree as I dug into it a little bit. San Vicente was pretty good, but slowed down late in there, and he's a horse who, stretching out 2 turns, Butane came out of that race and ran back at Oaklawn in the Southwest Stakes and was up on the pace and just kind of, you know, gave it up in the last 16th of a mile to finish a decent 3rd. You'd like to see Butane really punch out a grade 3 kind of field like the Southwest if you thought So Happy was going to make this kind of leap. Now, there's not a lot in this race, though. You know, this is a race, if So Happy wins it, you'll say, wow, he can really route. You know, he got the mile on the 16th. It's a grade 2. But if you look back, it's chances are Brandt didn't develop from 2 to 3 if that's going to happen. And Secured Freedom didn't run because there's really not a whole lot of other depth in here. I'm with you. I don't like Potente that much. If the horse didn't cost 2.4 and a grandson of Perfect Sting, there's a lot of pedigree there. but that debut wasn't that much. I really was not impressed by the race at all. Robusta did nothing in the Lewis. Can't expect him to do much in here. Start the ride coming out of the Cal Cup Derby. Yeah. So, I mean, somebody's going to run 1, 2, 3 in here and look like they can handle the mile on the 16th. I'm just not sure it's going to be a great answer moving forward. Secured Freedom coming from the mile and the Lewis now gets the mile on the 16th. I can see him in there for sure. I just ended up falling back to Brandt, and I'm not proud of the pick. I'm always trying to beat the favorites when I can and Baffert when I can. But in this particular case, I just didn't like any of the others enough to go forward with it. We'll see. He's three starts, 3 all at Del Mar. We don't know how he's going to run over the track here at Santa Anita. Let's take a look at Brandt in action last year, winning the Del Mar Futurity this around 1 turn.
Brandt arrives at the quarter pole in front. His lead is about a length now. Desert Gate comes one off the rail to confront him at the top of the stretch. And they're joined by Litmus Test on the far outside. And they're into the stretch, and Brandt is put to the test by Flavian Pratt. Desert Gate in one. Hernandez making a race of it on the outside. Brandt is in front at the 16th pole. Desert Gate doing his all, but second best to Brandt in the Del Mar Futurity. He won it by a length.
More notes. You saw that race runner up in there. Of course, Desert Gate hasn't answered the 2-turn question. He was a disappointment in the Lewis. And the workouts, you're trying to figure out this horse, Brandt, coming back for the first time since Halloween on the Breeders' Cup. 6 workouts right on cue, like you like to see. That's that star number you're looking for. Most trainers are trying to get 6 works in off a long layoff. That's the good news. For Bob Baffert, though, 5 of the 6 works for Brandt were solo works, not in company. It's kind of strange. That's not his typical work pattern. He'll usually put horses in company and get a lot more out of the mornings. I'm wondering if they're going easy on him for a particular reason, if he's going to be completely tight for this particular spot. His one workmate was a nobody. He hasn't been working like with the other, it's not like he's been working against Butane 2 or 3 times or, one of his other stakes kind of horses. We'll see Boyd run next week in the Virginia Derby. They're not working in company. I don't know. There's kind of kid gloves on Brandt, and I'm telling myself a million reasons not to pick him.
I mean, I was just going to say,
damn horse I like, Scott.
Yeah, I know. I mean, everybody that watches this is going to not play Brandt other than you, apparently. So, because I mean, you just gave a better reason to fade him than I did, other than I like maybe the chances of Secured Freedom to take a step forward more than you. But yeah, to me, it's a tough race because it is easy to fall back on Brandt, but just picture. Before we move forward, picture one thing. How many other people are going to come with the same way you did? Not the same process, but man, it doesn't look like there's much in here. I'll single Brandt.
Yeah, I do not think you single here. I think this is a great race to get a lot of depth. And if you're going to go 2-3 deep, you might as well consider all, but I can't see the 1 and I can't see the 7, maybe.
All but Brandt if you're going to do it, folks.
Yeah, throw Brandt out, take the 2, 3, 5, 6, which are the horses that seem to have a pulse and aren't the big favorite. And maybe you go 4 deep in there and you can try to hit something for a little bingo in the multi-race wagers. Also part of the Exacta-thon. See how you want to stretch out in that particular spot. Get your cash and your return if you beat Brandt. I don't know. I wrote up Countdown to the Crown, my scouting report each week. I ended up taking Brandt. I feel awful about it. So I'm going to sleep on it another night and then get up tomorrow, pop some antacid and see what happens by the time we get to the San Felipe. But I'm struggling with that one. You're on Secured Freedom. I think I'm just going to piggyback you and hope for the best. Let's go to the Kilroe Mile, race number 9, next up on the card at Santa Anita. Turf Mile in here, named for Frank Kilroe, racing executive in Southern California, one of the big names of turf in Southern California racing lore. Mi Hermano Ramon hasn't been seen since June. I know you like this one, Scott. We don't have to go far on the program to find him down on the rail.
Yeah, it's a lukewarm opinion in terms of this horse, but it's kind of something of a process of elimination. I think there's a lot of speed in here. There's no doubt El Patente is the one to beat off of his last effort, at least on paper. But to me, this is a much different task. It's the same distance, but he had things very easy that day. Now you look around this field, you've got Cabo Spirit, who I don't think is as fast, but likes to be involved. But the key here is Mi Bago shipping in for Mark Cassie. And Get Taramillo. This horse has no way to go but forward. And I don't know. I mean, I think El Patente can settle, but I don't think he's really the finisher that maybe some of these other horses are if the pace is honest. So to me, it was the 1 and the 2 as the closers. I prefer giving the look to Mi Hermano Ramon. I just think has more back class than Almendares, who kind of just wins when he drops down to the lower level. So we'll roll with me, Hermano Ramon, in a race that I don't know if it's a true grade one. We've seen better versions of this race recently, but this is a horse that's kept pretty good company.
Yeah, there's no Johannes anymore in that mile division out in Southern California, who was truly a grade one kind of animal. Some of these horses are left from that crop, though, or previous crops here up in age now, including me, Hermano Ramon. El Potente is a 7-year-old. He's been around a long time. He'll be one of the favorites in here because he's coming off an even money win in the Thunder Road.
Away Namarone first and widening at will. Here's El Potente hugging the rail with a 4-length lead. Gas Me Up takes up the chase on the outside. 16th pole, and a very special performance indeed out of El Potente, who strolls in the Thunder Road by 5 easy lengths. Gas Me Up, what?
Potente means powerful. This is El Potente. We had Potente in the previous race. Potente double maybe in races 8 to 9. Potente to El Potente from the San Felipe to the Kilroe Mile. Scott stopped picking here, though. He's going with me, Hermano Ramon, off the June layoff under Antonio Frezu. Let's go to race number 10 on the program next at Santa Anita. It is the Big Cap, the Santa Anita Handicap. 4 decades, really, since the track opened in the mid-1930s. This has been the staple race in the spring at Santa Anita, the big race of the season. 1.25 miles. The legends of turf have all won this race at some point in time, it seems, throughout the course of the decades. But this, Scott, is not a legendary field for this year's Big Cap, unfortunately. A couple scratches amongst the named horses in here as well. Skippy Longstocking was fractious trying to deport Florida on his plane ride. Decided to stay home and scratch out of this spot. Westwood, the Connection, CRK Stable, and new trainer Peter Urton, who took over for the late John Sheriffs, decided they want to go to the New Orleans Handicap on the Louisiana Derby Day card instead. So that leaves a field of 5 for the Santa Anita Handicap. And for somebody who loves this race with all of my being, it's kind of sad to see a great one fall. It's like an announcer. I know you guys were talking about Al Michaels earlier this week when we were on some Slack channel talking. It's hard to see the legends kind of give up the grip sometimes. And the Big Cap, for me, this is really disappointing.
I don't want to say that Al Michaels has dipped to this level, and I don't want to knock this race because I too loved it and have him.
Yeah,
it's a lot of circumstances. We could do a whole show on, how these handicap horses, how the things have changed with the international money and international game this time of year. But I guess we'll get into capping the race because I think there is some opportunity here. While it's not the Big Cap of past years, because I'm not in love with Just a Touch or Getaway Car. And with the scratches, I think they're going to be the two most heavily horses bet and used if you're playing the late horizontals. And to me, I'm going to use the other two. I think they or two of the other three. I'm sorry. No interest in Midnight Mammoth for whatever reason. But, Vodka interests me here. Has to prove he belongs at the class level. But like we talked, this isn't the true grade one. Right. And Angie Ordonez is a good trainer. She wins a lot of races with very limited stock, 28% dating back to the start of last year. And I think really good prep, as we'll take a look at in a moment. A mile and 1/8 on the turf in the Turf Classic. Yeah. I think this horse should be ready to get 1.25 miles. Maybe she's taking a shot. Maybe she got hustled in, etc. But I don't think that she would do that with one of her best horses. So I'm hopeful that Kent DeSormo can find a good trip with this one and prove best.
DeSormo aboard Vodka, just like last time you mentioned when in the Turf Classic. Prior to that was 4th, beaten 7, not beaten, by the length of the train tracks against Nisos, against Nevada Beach, either one of which would be 1 to 5 in this spot. So, in the same time zone with those kind of horses on the dirt, and the turf form last time was absolutely solid. Let's go back to Vodka. I'm in agreement with you. Vodka and British Isles are the two that interest me in the Big Cap.
Vodka takes the lead at the top of the stretch and turns for home in front. Over Stamp My Passport is trying to battle back. Then Call Me Sir, Stop Digging. Hey Jesse is starting to motor home in the center of the course. Vodka has a 1.5 lengths lead on the outside. Hey Jesse keeps on coming. Vodka or Hey Jesse. Vodka wins the Unusual Heat Turf Classic presented by City National Bank.
We'll see if that turf to dirt move helps propel Vodka to an upset in the Santa Anita Handicap. British Isles won it here, coming in from the Pegasus World Cup, finished an even fifth in that race for trainer David Fawkes. Richie Baltus had the horse before, so sent to Florida, ran in the name of Fawkes down there, comes back to the Baltus barn. This horse ran second beat and a half to Nevada Beach and the Native Diver at Del Mar at a mile and an eighth. Like Vodka, a horse who's got mostly a turf resume, up to a mile and a half. So the mile and a quarter is not going to be a problem for British Isles. To me, I think the race runs through British Isles and Vodka. I'm with you. I'm going to try to beat Just a Touch in here, and I've never thought Getaway Car was a mile and a quarter kind of horse.
Couldn't agree more. That's why I think, as much as it's not, the race of yesteryear, it is a race that I'm looking forward to, because I think there's some opportunity here.
Brad Cox bringing Just a Touch out. I think this is the 6th year in a row Cox has had a horse in the Santa Anita Handicap, so he's not afraid to come out here. He hasn't had a win yet. He does have a second and a third in the race, and he's brought horses out here that were pretty good. Last year he was second in here. Locked won the race, but Cox was able to hit the board. He brought Warrant out here, I believe, for a second or third place finish a couple of years back, and Hit Show, the horse who won a Dubai World Cup, was here. I think Hit Show might have been the horse last year that Cox brought out. So this is the kind of horse that he's come here and supported the Santa Anita Handicap with. Maybe not his absolute top handicap runner, but a good one in Just a Touch. But crazily, if you look back at his resume, has not won a stakes race. It's almost unfathomable, the races that he's kind of been aimed at and raced in and thought to be the quality of, and he hasn't even notched a listed stakes win yet.
Nope, and he didn't do very much running for me in the Kentucky Derby. The only time he didn't hit the board in his career, so he regrouped after that one. But
are you saying
a paper tiger, man?
54 wasn't the result you were looking for?
It was not the result I was looking for. I mean, luckily it was a very, very good race, and I forgot about it very quickly because it was such a great race. But yeah, this is just not the horse he looks like on paper. Can he win this race? Sure, maybe he'll even take the Santa Anita and the mile and a quarter more than you think, but I don't know. I think he's worth trying to beat, as I do with Getaway Car.
I'm with you. Let's go Aggie Ordonez to win the big cap at Santa Anita. That'll wrap up our handicapping for Saturday at the Great Race Place. Let's move now to Gulfstream Park, sister track on the Florida coast in Miami, Hurricane Birdie Stakes. Named for the good Bernie Flint sprinter back in the heyday. She earned just under $1 million. This is 6.5 furlongs. She won the Princess Rooney at Calder as part of the Summit of Speed, a Florida-bred good one. Hurricane Birdie. Field of 9 in this race. Scott, how do you break this one down?
Yeah, I think Our Disaster is the going to be the favorite in here. Could be loose on the lead, but she lost last time by a head of Churchill in the Dream Supreme. Haven't seen her since, and she only has 3 works in succession. Speaking back to your point off the break, she missed a whole almost nearly a month, at least in published works, for Sappy Joseph. Sterling Silver, solid horse. Just not one I like to bet usually. Needs to make up a lot of ground late, particularly at Gulfstream, even though she's 1 for 2 here. I'm going to try Roswell, who added the blinkers last out, put forth a much the best effort for her of recent times. Likes this course, and the outside has been the place to be overall at Gulfstream. Wasn't quite as favorable on Sunday and even during Saturday's Fountain of Youth card, but it still has been advantageous. So I think we're going to get a really good trip here, and does have exactly the work pattern we would want.
Roswell coming off the November layoff, a winner last time we saw her, and she's been a winner over this track in the past as well. Let's take you back to Aqueduct.
Roswell ready to challenge towards the outside. Twirling Beauty is battling on with the Angels. Now gets the cue. Roswell is a stubborn foe towards the outside, and here comes Roswell to the outside of With the Angels, trying to catch them both as the late running Cupid's Heart. Roswell has taken the lead. Roswell trying to put away With the Angels. Here comes Cupid's Heart late. Roswell is your winner. Roswell wins it. With the Angels look to hold second over the oncoming Cupid's Heart in
looking for the alien invasion from Roswell, because he's going up against 5 Sappy Josephs. 5, count them. It's like Nick Zito back in, 2009 the Derby, the Bellamy Road year or whatever that was. 5 of them for Sappy in the Hurricane Birdie, but Scott says not so fast. Bill Mott and Roswell, top choice there in the Hurricane Birdie. Let's go to Tampa Bay Downs on Saturday, Tampa Bay Derby Day. We've got a handful of stakes races for you to look at here, a trio, in fact, 4 overall in the card. We're going to look at the Columbia first up in race.
You got the Challenger at race 4, I think.
Oh, that's right. There's 5 stakes on the card. We've got 3 of them for you. Yeah, the Challenger without Skippy Longstocking, which I think he's won that race 3 or 4 years in a row going into this.
It's
so
going to be named
somebody new gets the Challenger trophy. We're going to start off in the Columbia, though, in race number 7, 125 grander here. These are 3-year-olds going to Turf Mile, and in terms of any of these horses that you might be thinking might try to hit the dirt after this, no Triple Crown nominees amongst this field in here. So these are strictly horses. We might be looking at something for like the Crown Royal American Turf on Kentucky Derby Day, perhaps the Transylvania at Keeneland. The Columbia Stakes, though, a mile on the turf, race number 7. Scott, I know there's one in here. Naughty Nicks, you were trying to catch last week. You get another chance.
I sure do. This is a horse that I think is run better than it looks at Gulfstream. Now ships cross state to Tampa for Jeff Engler. Gets Junior Alvarado, favorable inside draw, and probably a good scratch by Engler. It looks like half the price, at least on the morning line, in this spot. I don't know if he's going to get the setup I thought he would in that other race, but I just think his races are better than they look on paper. He's been caught wide with some trips. And the last race, he finished a solid 4th to a decent field. So I think this is Naughty Nicks's day, and I'm going to ride him, even though it was really I was really looking forward to trying to get him into the mix at a bigger price at Gulfstream.
Yeah, last week on the Fountain of Youth undercard, he was entered in there. Alpy Land comes out of that same race, the Kitten's Joy. He won the Dania Beach at Gulfstream for Mark Cassie. So Alpy Land, 3rd last out in the Kitten's Joy. Naughty Nicks, 4th in that race. They'll get a rematch across the coast at Tampa. Let's go back and take a look at their last start head-to-head at Gulfstream in the Kitten's Joy.
And they're at the top of the stretch. 3/4, 110-1. 1,000 Sticks. Rouse forward to take on Redland Rebels, who fights right back. Naughty Nicks is at the rail. Alpyland down the center. Final 16th of a mile. Redland Rebels is still in front. From between horses, 1,000 Sticks gains the upper hand now. Alpyland is into second, but it's back to 1,000 Sticks to win the Kitten's Joy. Redland Rebels stayed for second. Ahead of Alpyland, he finished 3rd. Closer 4th, either Naughty Nicks or Glorious Boy in 140-1.
A lot of deep closers in this race. If Proton from the 2-hole fires out sharp early, like he did in the Cecil B. DeMille at Del Mar for Grand Motion in the fall, you got to think John Velasquez going to take advantage of that inside 2-post and show speed in here. The 1, Naughty Nicks, drops back. A lot of these horses fall from out of it. Proton's going to be tough to catch in here if he comes back firing.
Potentially, but you got Nick's Honor that really knows only one way to go, a little bit cheaper. But I agree. The pace is not going to play out as I hope, but I also think Naughty Nicks from the inside draw after some outside Gulfstream draws with Lannery and Morales aboard could be closer. So that's what I'm hoping for, kind of staying close enough. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm sitting a couple lengths off the lead in the inside under Junior.
All right. Flipping through the cards Saturday at Gulfstream, as Scott mentioned, that Challenger Stakes earlier in the program. We just talked about race 7, the Columbia. The 9th is the Hillsborough. We're going to go to race number 10, so skip ahead in your past performances to race number 10 in the Florida Oaks. This is a grade 3 race here, $200,000 on the grass at a mile and a 16th. You throw Oaks up there and you're thinking of the first Friday in May. Maybe one of these fillies will try to cross back over to the main track. We see some fillies come out of this race and show up in the Ashland at Keeneland and maybe become an Oaks filly, but they could be turfers as well. What'd you end up with in here? Time to Dream looked really good at 2. The way she started her career, she looked like she was going to be a superstar. Nothing went right in the Breeders' Cup, and now she's on her 3-year-old return.
Yeah, a lot of times I might try to beat a horse like this, but I think there's going to be an honest pace, and we know Todd Pletcher not afraid to bring back horses at Tampa, big horses or, race horses at Tampa. 31% this year with limited starters. We know he's won Tampa Bay Derbies, but in the past, we'll talk about that next. I just think this is a serious filly that he's been setting up for this spot. I guess I would assume Keeneland, right? Mm-hmm. And then what's the race? The
Edgewood.
The Edgewood. No, yeah, the Edgewood. No, the Edgewood's at Churchill, right?
Right. I thought you were saying Keeneland then to
the Edgewood would be the ultimate goal. Exactly.
Appalachian might be the spring, or is that the fall 3-year-old race?
I don't know, but you're on the same page as me, basically, with the goal being 3rd off the bench in that race. So I don't see any negatives about this filly unless she just doesn't step forward off the bench for Todd here. We should get a really good setup. So Time to Dream, a chalky one. I assume probably a short price right in here.
Yeah, I would think so. And man, she looked really good.
5-2 on the line. Yeah, she looked really good in those races.
I mean, and fresh, right? And that's what you're looking for. Can you fire fresh? And you look back and you say, look, debut winner, second start winner. This horse can run without being deep into the form cycle. And we'll see her in her first start at 3. But at 2, boy, she looked good on the turf in New York.
Yep, far outside. Time to Dream has a clear shot as they reach the top of the stretch, and she is accelerating in fine fashion. Here comes Time to Dream. What an athletic burst to the front. Opening up 3. Now it's 4. Time to Dream. She is ultra talented. Streaking home to win by 6 lengths in the P.G. Johnson. Scratch It was
That day, we'll see how she performs here first time as a 3-year-old. Time to Dream. I thought Dandona was an interesting horse in here. I'm going to use both the 5 and the 7 in this spot. Huge 111 brisk late pace figure last time out when running 3rd in Allowance Company. I know that's probably pace aided a little bit because they went slow early, but nobody else picked it up like that. And if you look at the late pace figures in this race, most of them are in the 80s. Even the deep closers are firing in the 80s. 111, even if it's pace aided a little bit, that's a major, major spread to the rest of the field. Even if she's 10 points better on a late pace figure than these and not 30, that puts her right in the mix, and I think she'll be a fair number. So I'm going to give Dandona a shot. She is cross-entered at Gulfstream, though, on Saturday, so I'm not sure if Safi's going to send her over for this race. But when you have Flavian Pratt named to ride, I don't think you're staying where you were previously, where Pratt would be named on somebody else in here.
That's a big number, like you mentioned, and not a lot to knock. I mean, they clearly thought, it's interesting they debuted her over the all-weather. Maybe that was just circumstantial. You don't see too many $1.05 million purchases, but she seemed to live up. She showed the kick that they were hoping to see in that race, and she just, didn't get the setup like you mentioned.
Let's go now to the Tampa Bay Derby. It'll be our final handicapping task of the weekend. 50 points to the winner towards the Kentucky Derby. That'll get you in the gate. Upper 30s usually get you right around the starting gate in today's day and age. So really, even a second place finish in this race could put some other horses over the top who already have accrued a few points. We've got a field of 9 going in the Tampa Bay Derby. No scratches in this particular race that we know of to this point. We've got some name horses in here that have done some things in the past. We've seen Further Ado win the Kentucky Jockey Club. We've seen horses like Talkin' run second in the Champagne to Napoleon Solo. Then we've got some horses that are rising up through the ranks. A really good maiden winner named Canaletto from Gulfstream Park. And a couple horses for Kentucky Derby winning trainers who are still maidens, and they might be amongst the favorites. Todd Pletcher's got one in here called Power Shift, who's still a maiden. And then the horse who was runner-up, the Puma, runner-up in the Sam F. Davis Stakes, for Gustavo Delgado of Mage fame. He's still a maiden as well. But we saw Pletcher with Renegade win as a maiden in the Sam F. Davis to start this trail for the Tampa Bay Derby locally. There'd be no shock if it's another maiden winning in one of these spots.
Absolutely not. Those are the kinds of things that only might enhance value. I don't think the computers are worried about it, but when most people look at the past performances for the biggest race of the day or the biggest race of the meet, they're not going to, immediately want to bet a horse that hasn't won, right? The public, that is. I think that makes Power Shift the wager in this spot. I think Canaletto and Further Ado have equally the upside, maybe more you could argue. Canaletto was really good on debut. 1-turn mile, not easy to win at. Did so convincingly. But the favorable outside draw he had that day might not be as favorable going 2 turns at Tampa for him. So that's a concern a little bit. And Further Ado, he regressed quite a bit, as you would expect in the Kentucky Jockey Club. It was 7 weeks rest. Maybe that's more who he is, and he hasn't been seen since. So while we know his upside is huge based on that maiden win at Keeneland, I just think there's some downside here with this horse. So those two, to me, are going to take far more money than Power Shift. And I'm going to lean on Power Shift in here. Not to say I'm not using other horses and I'm singling in the horizontal, but I think the wager in here.
Power Shift ran on the same day as the Sam F. Davis Stakes. It was on the undercard. He ran against a horse named Emerging Market for Chad Brown. They locked up. We're going to give you a chance to see that in some lengthy detail here in just a second. We're going to see Emerging Market return in the Louisiana Derby at Fairgrounds out of that race. One maiden headed to a big Kentucky Derby prep, and the other horse who ended up runner-up in there, we're going to see on Saturday at Tampa in Power Shift. That's Scott's top pick. Let's go back and introduce you to the debut on the undercard for the Sam F. Davis.
And Power Shift gears out to the 3-path now to come after these two. In behind that, Emerging Market, Municipal, they're 4th and 5th. 5 more back to Make My Day, Mo Beach Time. They're both making some late impressions. As Power Shift goes to the lead at the top of the lane, Power Shift quickly tackled by Emerging Market on the outside, and these two go on with it as they come to the top of the lane. Emerging Market, Power Shift shoulder to shoulder as they come to the 8th pole. Emerging Market on the outside. Power Shift battles right back toward the inside. These two have gone well clear of the rest. Emerging Market on the outside. Power Shift, a final 16th to throw it down here at Tampa. Emerging Market, Power Shift, Emerging Market in front late. Emerging Market won it. Power Shift was second. It was 11 or 12 back to Make My Day, Undertaker, and Municipal.
Big gap back to third in there. Irad Ortiz Jr. was aboard Power Shift that day. John Velasquez now takes the mount for this one as Irad takes the mount on Further Ado, a horse he won by 20 with at Keeneland, as you mentioned, won the Kentucky Jockey Club. Couldn't have been easy for him to make the call in this race, and I'm sure it was his call to make it here. Irad can ride pretty much whoever he wants when it comes to horses for Pletcher or Brad Cox, especially when he's won stakes aboard of Further Ado. He honors the stakes mount back. Do you read much into that? Is that a preferential pick in there, or more of a, well, we know what we have with Further Ado?
You can't take yourself off Further Ado, who was the favorite, starting the year. Nothing has changed unless he's not training as well or whatever. Quotes would say he is. Irad would probably have a good idea. So maybe that's the one positive you could take. But they're not going to talk about how this horse is, who's like their main Derby horse, isn't training well. So I don't read anything into that. Johnny V will be very happy. He's him and Todd have been, their old relationship's been rekindled a bit of late, and especially class president, a horse tip of the cap to you. You liked them a lot amongst the two horses you were heavy on in the Rebel. But I'm not going to let that bother me, and I'm going to actually be hopeful that the public does.
Further Ado, a horse with Brad Cox as the trainer. Cox already with 3 wins on the Derby Trail this year. He got 2 out of Commandment, and he also won the Jerome, the Mucho Macho Man, and the Fountain of Youth. So Cox got 3 wins on the Derby Trail. He doesn't seem as hot as Brad Cox normally is, but maybe perking up here after winning the Fountain of Youth last week. Again, Commandment becoming a 2-time winner on the trail. We'll see with Further Ado. I know Cannoneer disappointed, a horse who came out of that same card. Cannoneer ran a race or two after the Kentucky Jockey Club on that card in November at Churchill, and those two were kind of like the 2 ballyhooed horses for Cox coming into the year. The return race for Cannoneer was disappointing. We'll see if he gets another shot on the Derby Trail before they pull the plug on him, but he's still in training well. Further Ado, they waited a little longer to bring him back by design, and he's getting that 2 prep path. They were always taking Further Ado back to Keeneland, right? You don't win by 20 there in Allowance Company and not be a bluegrass horse. You're going to come back. If you're going to run your grade 1, you're going to run it at Keeneland with a horse who has that form. So Tampa to Keeneland has been a great prep path over the years, from the Tampa Bay Derby to the Bluegrass Stakes. So that was an easy path to mark out for him as a 2 prep season. We'll see if he can get the first part of it. Further Ado could run well in this race, though, and run second or third. I think there's some quality horses in here. The Puma, let's talk about him for just a second. He's still a maiden. Second in the career debut to Chief Wallaby, who came back and was, pins and needles to the wire of the Fountain of Youth last week before losing a head bob there. So the company lines for the Puma are certainly good, because then when he came back and ran third, it was the Renegade in the Sam F. Davis. That was his first start around 2-turn. Now he's got some 2-turn experience, a race over the track. None of that hurts. Plenty of shippers have done well in the Tampa Bay Derby over the years. Don't overinflate the thought that Tampa Bay is this weird, quirky surface that horses don't like. The stats just don't bear that out. But having a race over the track and distance and running pretty well for the Puma certainly doesn't hurt his cause. He's a maiden, Scott, but he's not impossible here.
No, he was highly regarded, as you can see, against Chief Wallaby in the debut, and broke slow, ran well. And I don't know who's going to win the Kentucky Derby. I don't know who people think the most talented horse or the best horse is moving, slightly forward like we will in 2 months. But I'd have a hard argument not saying I'd want Chief Wallaby to own amongst everybody I've seen run so far. You know, he's fun. He's fun to watch. And the fact that this horse ran close, you know, maybe he tries to, I would think, you know, he didn't break very well in the debut. The outside post this time, maybe he tries to go as well, because I thought he's going to get hung pretty wide in this spot, and it's going to be tricky.
I was hoping he'd draw a little bit better for sure in this particular spot. But I mean, he could be one certainly in that hunt and moving on the trail, second or third place finish. They're going to keep trying him in one of the grade ones at the end of the prep season. Speaking of 3-year-old preps and Kentucky Derby contenders, just a little bit of news out of the morning. This morning, Cherie DeVoe posted on her X feed a workout between her two Kentucky Derby prospects. Golden Tempo, the more accomplished of the pair, along with Reagan's Honor. Reagan's Honor's won back-to-back races at Fairgrounds around 2 turns in blistering fashion, and it's one of the ones, I think, for this year's 3-year-old crop. He's training towards the Bluegrass Stakes. Golden Tempo won the LeComp. Won the LeComp, then was third in the Risen Star. Will stay at Fairgrounds for the Louisiana Derby coming up in short time. They work together in company. Got to see the two of them come down the lane from Cherie's video, and I got to say, I thought Reagan's Honor was going easy, and it was Golden Tempo was trying to keep up with them in that particular spot. So as we kind of look ahead to like which one of these horses are the best of the Cherie DeVoe's, I kind of like the raw talent that I saw on race day from Reagan's Honor. And when they worked against each other, I kind of think I like him better than Golden Tempo as well. Golden Tempo worked in blinkers this morning, Scott, and he's going to wear them in the next start, I believe.
I'm out on Golden Tempo. The combination of the, I trust your eye more. I saw what you saw when it comes to works. I don't think the LeComp was much. It kind of fell apart late. And then, and you've got a horse in the same barn that, I don't know. I mean, I don't like the equipment change before the biggest race of your life either. So the jury's out on Reagan's Honor, who's going to have a lot of tough competition in the Bluegrass and need to run well to get in the Derby. Yeah. But from a talent perspective, I don't think these horses are on the same level at this point.
This is going to be a fantastic final round of Kentucky Derby prep starting in a week or so. This is still kind of the middle round here. This is the Elite Eight. We're not to the Final Four yet in terms of March Madness when you talk about college basketball to horse racing. This round of the 50-point preps with the Tampa Bay Derby and the San Felipe. Really important races. Somebody's going to qualify for the Kentucky Derby in each one of those races with the victory. But at the same time, there's still one more step to go for these horses, and that's the one that's really going to be important as we march towards the first Saturday in May. That's going to wrap up our handicapping for this week's podcast. We'll be back on the First Call podcast next Friday to get into a big weekend. But for everybody around the first team and my partner, Scott Shapiro, have a great big cap, everybody. Scott, I'm going to let you send everybody out with the final word.
Wow, I'm nervous now. I mean, hopefully put up a strong performance, much like, I don't have any future bets on these two races, so I don't have anything like secured freedom, though. But, it should be a lot of fun. We had the big weekend last weekend. Great job at Gulfstream Park. Massive day. Appreciate everybody supporting that. Hopefully we get similar support at Santa Anita for this big card on Saturday, and wish Tampa Bay well with their biggest card of the year.
Good luck, everybody. We'll see you next Friday.